All right, Nida, if you don't mind jumping on video and audio.
Guys, hi
Hey,
Andrew.
well, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're calling in from. It's nice to see everybody who's joining. Um, I'm really excited to have Nida Mehtab with me today. Um, she has spent a lot of time in workplace and workplace strategy, currently works at Advanced Workplace Associates, better known as AWA. Um, My name is Andrew Farah. I'm co-founder and CEO of a company called Density. If you've been to these before, you've probably heard my spiel, but we design systems that measure how humans use space inside buildings. But today is not about me, nor is it about Density. It's about Neda. Neda, can you say a quick hello and maybe just really quickly, what do you do? And then we'll jump in.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys, really. And thank you for prepping me with the right protocols for this webinar as well. My name is Nida Mehtab, and I am very excited to be here and talking a little bit about my experience as well as the workplace and how the shifting needs, what the shifting needs are in the current uh, amazing time that we have to solve for together. I'm the Bay Area market lead for Advanced Workplace Associates and a portfolio strategist. Have evolved from portfolio real estate world to workplace world and the technology transformation and all of that. Have been there, done that, have been on the owner side and also on the service provider side. My background is in architecture, and I'm just very happy to be here. So
That's
anything
great.
else?
That's great. So maybe situate us a little bit. First off, you work with some of the largest corporations in the world in sort of a consultative capacity, um, working with them on workplace change management, real estate strategy. I think one of the questions that I have, maybe to kick this off, is how many of your clients are in office right now? Um, and if they're back, at what percentage? Are we talking like single digit percentage utilization? Or are we talking like fully back?
Well, you don't think that this is a curved question because I think the answer right now is that almost everyone is working remote. We have just a couple of clients who do fall in the category of essential workers. So for them,
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a limited capacity, but it's not more than a double digits occupancy in the office. But absolutely, more than 90% of our clients are working remote and have been working remote since the shelter in place.
So I have to imagine, the downtime has sort of created an interesting opportunity for workplace teams to start thinking about perhaps what they do differently as they come back. Um, I think we were having this conversation sort of in preparation. I would love to know, like, what did we think was going to happen April, March of 2020? Like, what did everybody in workplace think was going to happen? When do we think we were going to be back? And then what is sort of the reality today? Are we talking like August? Are we talking January? When is it that we go back to offices en masse?
I think that if I have to define March and April of 2020 in one word, everyone was in denial. So that was a very apparent state of mind, even if you're a if an industry practitioner or if you're just an employee. People thought that this is a blip and we're going to get past it in a couple of months. And here we are a year into it, and we are realizing that okay, this is not only maybe something to stay in some shape or form, but this is an opportunity for us to prepare ourselves as organizations, as consultants, as practitioners,
Mm-hmm.
to avoid the for the lack of a better term disaster that this pandemic has caused us not to happen or not to impact the companies in the future. To your later question, Andrew, about when do I think that people will be returning to bed, I think it's a combination of two things. Number two, one is that geography where you are in the world as well, because yes, US and UK is not the only places. Sometimes in some countries and in cultures that the home conditions are really not conducive to work from home. So you're going to see more shift of people wanting to come to work, not because they miss a lot of things, but because they feel like they're more productive. But it is also a function of how organizations are changing on that or moving on that change curve, understanding that we have to respond to the employees' desire to work from home and balance it with the company's objectives and strategic.
So, so can we talk about that for a second? There's this interesting sort of concept of like, what is the workplace now? I was
Mhm.
talking to we were talking to Devra from Twilio last week, and two sort of big things are changing. We'll get to the assigned and unassigned seating in a moment, but right now I'm particularly interested in like 40% of her workforce, of Twilio's workforce, will be working remote. Um, at what point do workplace teams start thinking about homes as an extension of their office? Like, at what point do we, as employers, start paying for internet, um, building out spaces for individuals, and sort of being responsible for the portion of people's offices where they're going to be doing work? Even if it's, call it 20 to 30% of your workforce, seems like it's a material portion. Like, how should a workplace person be thinking about home offices?
And what I'm seeing is that that is happening. That just through working with their clients and the discussion that we're having, companies are acknowledging the need to having to pay for people's home environment, to making them ergo friendly, making them technologically enabled. Because the best, as a team leader, as a leader, the best thing that you can do is to enable your team to do their best work no matter where they are. So from that perspective, there's a significant amount of acknowledgement from the organizations, especially given that talent attraction and retention is a big deal, not only today, but in the future to come. So I am not seeing that there is not an acknowledgement from the companies to accommodate
Sure.
that.
Well, but I think I guess I'm less concerned. I think the acknowledgement seems to exist, but um, uh, workplace strategy seems to start to extend into the home in a way that just, maybe we've been experimenting with, and for the first time we're very seriously considering, like, well, half or more of our people may be working from home. What does that mean for our real estate strategy? So, are you seeing folks? Um, One of the questions we like to ask is around, uh, are you consolidating space? Are you repurposing space? Um, are you buying more space? What's the sentiment? And I would love if you have a couple practical examples of folks and what they're actually deciding to do, without naming any names.
No, absolutely. I would say that for some clients, we're working on the fact that, so real estate strategy, real estate is a supplier for the business demand, right? So it's a function
Hmm.
of what business needs to do their work and to deliver the tasks that they have on their 5-year plan or yearly plan. In terms of incorporating and applying the COVID learnings and the pandemic learnings, or this remote and hybrid way of working, there are two ways of addressing it. Number one, you either directly develop business cases and the portfolio optimization modeling, given the bottoms up approach, which is the surveys, or the top down approach, which is the leadership interviews, and merge the two and see where is that right balance for their organization, and then model it on the portfolio forecasting and different tools. The second way of addressing is that you don't really reduce your real estate upfront, but you really learn from understanding what opportunities on the table, and then you realize that over the period of time, the same amount of space can accommodate more people. So from density perspective, and I don't mean
That's
density,
a great word. I really like that one. Yeah.
not the workspace density perspective, you can accommodate more in the future. So there are
So,
two school of thoughts on the table.
well, so does that mean that we're more people in fewer square feet? Is that what you? I guess, like, are we are we going back to the action office of Herman Miller, and like are we going to wander into a space and you're just going to have lots of people sort of really close? Or do you think it's going to be a more hybrid approach where you have like some folks that are using the space in the morning, some folks are using the space in the evening, and there's sort of this balancing going on?
I think the latter, because the first one is also every organization's answer to what do we need to use the space for, or why do employees need to come to the office? That answer is going to dictate that if it's your first or the latter one.
So what's happening between now and reopening? Let's say it's January, like your workplace. We have folks who are on the call who are from portfolio management, folks that are technologists, folks that are on workplace teams. So what do you do in the downtime? And what's the best use of time? What's like the highest ROI investment of time in preparation for reopening? Is it around safety? Is it around real estate strategy? What's your take?
I think my take is there are two things that are happening right now, no matter if you're the furniture partner or a technology partner or workplace consultant. One is research, and the second is experimentation. So we have been given an opportunity of a lifetime to learn from this last 1 year of data and behaviors and trends that we have gathered in different capacity, and inform that how do we develop those best solutions for the clients given where they are on that curve. And
But
one thing,
people are home, aren't they? Like what data are you referring to? Is it like data that is it stuff that you've already collected, or is it like on the ground interviews, or just because so many people are working from home?
the data is not necessarily the numbers. Data is also the information. So only because people are working from home doesn't mean that you cannot get an insight into what, when they do return to office, how do they desire to work in the office? Given that they have successfully and effectively worked from home in last 1 year, how would they like to see the enablers happening in the office and the obstacles removed from the office? So all of that is data that takes place in the workplace strategy world to inform your future solutions. And survey is one mechanism. The second is that the leadership is actively, no matter which company you belong to, leadership is actively thinking about that, how to strategize or how to bring people back to work, if should they desire to bring back to meet their strategic goals. So these composition of information and data is coming together to inform how things are going to change. A lot of companies are also in the mode of piloting different solutions as well to see what really works well and what crystallizes as the future of work for them.
Could you give me some practical examples? Like what type of experiments, what type of feedback are you getting from folks on what they'd like to see?
So I would just give you two different examples, and I'm not going to name clients, but there's one client who have been extremely conservative and legacy approach they have taken in bringing everyone back 5 days a week and having everyone mandating everyone to be in the office 5 days a week. And even for that organization, their composition between hybrid and remote is between 70 to 80%. So what they're experimenting is that how do we create those, of course, shared neighborhood scenarios enabled and accentuated by technology, which is preservation systems, sensors, and all the other occupancy nuggets that come into play. But some other clients, what we're experiencing is that they were already far along on that progressive way of working approach. So they were doing some kind of neighborhood setting scenarios. Now they're advancing on that journey, and they are trying to see that how we can zone different offices, or how we can give people a choice to, no matter where they're working from, they don't see that as a remote or an inequitable experience, by creating different technology enabled spaces to dial in from. So
Gotcha.
those are the couple of things.
Folks on the call, if you have questions, feel free to toss them in the Q&A section of Zoom, and I'll incorporate them into the discussion. So real estate is really expensive. What's stopping folks who have sort of successfully run these remote, essentially run their businesses remote, from having their portfolio? I mean, I guess prognosticate for me, like what happens over the next 12 months in the real estate market?
Adjustment, of course. Some companies are thinking that this is the opportunity to reduce the real estate portfolios by 90%, and they may find out that the real answer lies somewhere between 40 to 60% optimization of real estate. And it is also, and there are other companies where they know that they have a really big wave of growth coming in next 3 to 5 years or 1 year, and just getting rid of the portfolio regardless of that is not going to be the right answer, because they're going to have to go back to the market and acquire more real estate. So they're hanging on to that portfolio to see that how we absorb the future demand of business in the portfolio size that we have. So from real estate perspective, it's again a hybrid. It's really important for organization to know what their 5-year, 10-year plan is to make these decisions. Because to your point, Andrew, real estate is the second highest investment or the cost to the company. So it has to
Next
be
to payroll. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So are the okay? So people come back. Are they going to go? Are they going to book neighborhoods? Are they going to? Is it going to be all unassigned seating? And this is where I'd love to maybe shift into how we think about workplace and change management. We have some folks that we've talked to are going to 100% unassigned from being 100% assigned. How do you deal with essentially the massive amount of communication and sort of like either training or sort of support that you give to employees that are not used to the office that they come back to?
That's a great question. And I would say that, again, the starting point is that where the company has been pre-COVID. If the pre-COVID default was that one-to-one assigned, then even those companies are going to be reflecting or showing some shift from unassigned to a certain, assigned to a certain unassigned. That's called the hybrid, and the neighborhood things will come in. Second thing, companies who are already doing neighborhoods, they're going to advance their utilization and occupancy behaviors in the workplace, and they will go towards that. Let's try and experiment with different toning types. Let's try and experiment with full free addressing. From employee perspective, when they come into the office, they expect a certain predictability. So, and that predictability is a function of that what they have been used to. We as a species have evolved not because we are the strongest or the smartest, but because we are the most adaptable. So that Darwin theory will continue to apply, people will learn, but how do you make it more seamless? It's really important to incorporate change management thinking as a leader, as a middle management, or as an employee, that how do I bring these people along that curve? If we break that thing, I think that's where the frustration from the employee perspective starts to arise.
It seems like a pretty remarkable opportunity, though, to introduce new concepts, especially when the normal for folks have been, I've got to figure out how to teach my kids. I've got to figure out how to be a full-time colleague. I've got to figure out how to be, a full-time mom or dad. And so it's like I might be more willing or more tolerant of substantial change to the office, given that I'm coming from a circumstance that's really challenging at home. All right. I guess talk to me a little bit about safety. So we've learned that there are like two really important buckets for safety. Is this space safe? Meaning like cleaning, other sort of activities that go in and sort of like make sure that the space is ready for employees. And then there's the perception of safety, which is more communication and like, do I believe that this space is safe? How are your clients dealing with safety? And can you give me some specifics on either policies, masks in motion we've heard? What are some of the practical on the ground things that people are either doing or planning to do?
Good question, Andrew. I think if we have heard one word in last 1 year, X amount of time, that's the word safety. But again, the safety should not be just perceived as the physical safety, but it's also psychological safety, no matter where you're working. But I'm going to stick with the physical and space safety for you here. I think from employees' perspective, the moment they start feeling unsafe is when they feel like they have no control over keeping their desks or their neighborhoods or the spaces that they're going to be using safe by themselves. Yes, every organization is doing and should be doing maybe a daily, nightly cleaning or making sure that they have some indicators available that this desk is clean or not. But you may be sanitizing stations, adding some Lysol wipes on every desk or in some community areas where employees feel like they still have a way of making their own space or the desk that they're coming to extra safe. That's one way of addressing it. The second way of addressing is that I know that previously the neighborhoods were assigned to the lines of businesses, then the community areas or the collaboration areas ended up being responsibility of the line of business who actually is residing in that. Now, real estate teams, facilities teams, and the facility team on the grounds, they have an added layer of responsibility to make sure that those collaboration spaces are becoming a part of their cleaning routines. But one thing I do want to touch upon while we're talking about safety is that the hybrid working or return to work or return to office is not just the function of being physically safe, but it's also when you're not in the office and you're working away from the office. Do you still feel psychologically safe that your leadership and your managers are still feeling like you're an integral part, an effective part of the team? Or is it a FOMO that if I'm out of sight, out of mind? So middle management has to do a very important job, and people managers have to do a very important job to make their team realize that we're in this together. And as long as you are getting the results to the table, work wherever you want to work from.
Yeah. What do you think about cost of living adjustments?
Well, that's inevitable.
I mean, but yeah, I mean, but let's dig maybe a bit deeper. Like I decide to move to Ibiza which I think I heard actually yesterday on a call. But I'm still doing the same work. I'm still overlapping on the same hours, let's say. I'm still sort of producing the same way that I have been for the last year. But I'm living in a new country or a new space, and I used to be in San Francisco. Should I be able to keep my salary?
I think so. From a real estate and workplace perspective, I will share my opinion, but I'm pretty sure the HR world is better equipped to answer that.
No, that's great. I'm asking you to, yeah, even if it feels outside the realm.
No, absolutely. I know that when I came from Chicago to San Francisco, at that point, it was like, oh, of course, because you're going to live in San Francisco, you're going to get X amount of percentage of increase and all that. And of course, that ends up going more towards your expenses. But I'm seeing how organizations are really approaching or strategizing around when the new roles are being posted. They are making the positions more they're anchoring the positions in those geographies where the cost of living is relatively within 10-20% of the ballpark. So if you are Andrew is applying to that, if it's Andrew is in San Francisco versus Seattle versus LA versus Chicago, more or less they fall in the ballpark. So those are the markers that are posted. I think that from employee perspective, if I know that I have more flexibility to be anywhere to do my work, I will jump on that. Yeah, just take a pay cut or 20%, 30%, as long as I'm able to find that balance and be flexible where I work from. That's going to add a whole new level of mental ease and peace of mind to my mind. So I think it's going to vary employee to employee and your organization to organization. But HR is these days, we are hearing they're strategizing differently from markets perspective.
Yeah. Do you have to, are we going to have to incentivize people to come back to the office? Are incentives an important part of real estate strategy?
I think we should incentivize people to do the right thing. So what I mean by that is if people were used to coming to one-to-one desk and now you're not giving them one-to-one desk, then that behavior should be appreciated, encouraged, and incentivized. Whereas, and yes, every organization, if you're taking the desks away from an employee, there will still be some exceptions in the decision makings and all that stuff that you can still get a desk given that bar that you qualify for all these things. But I think we should incentivize moving the needle towards what's important for the organization and doing the right thing. So if coming to the office is what the leadership wants from a collaboration and knowledge transfer perspective, then yeah.
But I guess, do you have a strong opinion on like whether or not people should have like is it what is your opinion? Is unassigned seating the right way to go long term? Is that the future of real estate? You know, is this hybrid motion the future of real estate?
Absolutely.
And what'd you say?
Absolutely. Live in your backpack.
Okay. Live in your backpack. Okay, that's fantastic. I gotta get like a t-shirt that says live in your backpack. And so like, do you make these recommendations to clients? Like, is it, hey, this is what's happening. This is what you should very seriously consider doing. Or is it always sort of this like consultative, like what's in the best interest of the client? And like, what do you want? And the reason I ask is architects, you're an architect or have a background in architecture. Like architecture school is a 5-year program typically. And critiques on Fridays are nuts. Like those are intense sessions where you are getting hammered on the design and construction of I lived with some of my roommates were architecture students, and I never saw them because they were always night owls. They would work all day. I guess my question is like, you were pushed in architecture school to have a really strong opinion about what is right or what is not right for a space. So, yeah, do you have a really strong opinion about like what these organizations should be doing? And if they absolutely must do the thing that they don't like or that you don't think is right, then you'll support them because that's your job. I guess like where do you draw the line on like this is definitely the future of real estate and you should be investing here?
Of course, I have a strong opinion.
Great, I would love to hear it.
My opinion is that we should, again, it just comes back to our core things and what's the right thing to do in the long run, and that's good for the planet as well. And there is a bigger thing at play, which is called sustainability and the how do we save our planet. So commuting plays a very big role into that carbon emission. The building, lightings, HVAC, and all that is another significant percentage that adds to the carbon emission, and of course, our consumables. And things like that. So if we add all that up, if we can show our clients that given that how your our employees are wanting to work, you can still achieve your goals or your vision or your mission by by developing these hybrid models. And guess what? You can really get all these opportunity on the table that's going to set you as an environmental ambassador or can do your contribution. So that's one way we also look at things. To your point about that, when we look at everything from the client perspective, yes, we do, but they hire us for a reason
To
and
have an opinion. Yeah.
and not just an opinion, but a fact that why we think that this will work and how it's going to be better for them in the future. In the end, you make the case, you tell them what are different scenarios, and they have to pick one or not pick one. Yes, you cannot hold their hands, but you can really make a solid case and be the right partner to think that through and work with them to make that happen.
Gotcha. Interesting. We have a couple of interesting questions, and we have maybe a few more minutes. We'll probably wrap about 5 minutes after the half hour. Should employees be able to reserve bathrooms, kitchens, engineering labs, aside from just desks and meeting rooms? What should be bookable, I guess maybe is the question.
That's a fantastic question. I never even thought of that. But
And what should not be bookable, I guess, is the other part of that.
Um, what should not be bookable? Let's just not book the elevators already. But I'm kidding. I think that from the bathroom's perspective, it can be achieved through different technology and sensors that you don't even have to get inside the bathroom cubicles and everything to see that, oh, if there's any room available. So technology can solve that problem to not having to reserve the bathrooms, but still be able to manage the capacity and make it predictable and visible outside. Engineering labs, that is a type of spaces that we see with a lot of our clients that those are the specialty or the essential space types that can be made available.
Sure, might as well be a conference room, might as well be something that you can book and reserve.
And I think that the other part is some meeting rooms, collaboration spaces. Yes, absolutely. That gives us not only a predictability and autonomy and what kind of spaces do we want to use, but it also gives planning team and the real estate and workplace team an understanding and insight into how to better adjust those ratios and the capacities of those space types to align with the demand. So yes, is my answer.
All right, so we're going to be building, I believe the number is, and I could be off by a couple hundred, but it's like 11,370 buildings got built net new yesterday. And 11,370 buildings will be built net new today and every day for the rest of the year. And by 2030, that number is going to go up north of 16,000 new buildings every day. You sort of made this point about climate. Buildings account for 28% of carbon emissions. They're both embedded and sort of operational carbon, like energy and so forth. Should we be building buildings? Should we be replacing buildings? Like long term, is the right thing for climate to be repurposing existing space, finding better use for existing space, or is it to continue to build more sustainable brand new buildings as we go forward?
That's an excellent question, Andrew. And I may attack it correctly.
Like, do we have too much space?
Of course we do. Well, the point is that, well, the way the world of work is changing, the way the work is changing itself, it's not only going to impact that how much buildings do we build or how many buildings do we not build. It's going to impact the urban planning, the city planning, the design, and all of that. And so the city planning is going to be responding to that, how decentralization is going to happen. Do we need one large campus building, or can we have these decentralized spokes and everything? So should we be building as much? I think regardless of pandemic or not, we should always question that. Do we need to build something? Do we need to buy another piece of cloth or not? That should be a part of our thinking process. The reusable, what's the cost per wear, what's the cost per use, because only then we're going to start understanding the impact, and then we're going to start minimizing the impact to the planet. It's just my answer.
That's great. All right, well, we are going to be wrapping in just a minute or two. Nida, maybe before we do, you can snap your fingers and all buildings can self-modify to the thing that you imagine. What does it look like? What does it look like? You said, what's your 5-year plan, that you're asking customers. You have sort of the ability to instrument magic into real estate and offices, what does it look like?
From portfolio perspective, it looks like 10% of the current portfolio that we have. And what's the work-based perspective, it's all combination of collaboration.
So when you say 10%, you mean 1/10 of what we have. You think it's like 90% less?
Yes, I think we can all, technologies at our fingertips. We're talking about going to Mars. We can do it.
That's awesome. I haven't ever gotten that answer. So what you're saying is like, you think that we are like, we have way more space than we need. Not slight portion, but like we're talking many, many multiples.
Yes, and it's not going to happen in a snap of a finger. It will take time. It will take some realization, some thinking, some dialogue, some convincing. But yeah, that's what I think. What the future looks like to me.
That's great. I think that is an excellent place to end. I would just say, it sounds like you're in the business of helping folks manage, build, retrofit, or otherwise use space. So you're saying this from a biased perspective, but it sounds like you're not advocating for more space. I guess what I'm saying is it would be in your best interest to have more space to manage, presumably. But you're saying that like really we can achieve just as much as we want to achieve with substantially less.
I think we are not tapping into the fullest potential of the knowledge worker that we have. Knowledge workers are more capable of adapting and learning these new ways of still being collaborative and being effective and infusing that transfer of knowledge. We didn't have to, so organizations didn't have to, so they haven't really tapped into it fully. There is much more potential out there.
That's great. Nida, if people want to find out more about your organization or you, where should they go?
You're welcome to share my email as well. I can just link them to the Advanced Workplace Associates website as well. Happy to schedule a quick chat with anyone who wants to know more before they want to reach out to anyone else. So my email is Mehtab@advanced-workplace.com. I'm sure that Andrew, you'll share that, but
yeah, we will. Nida, thank you so much for spending time with us, and for the folks who've stuck around. Really appreciate you all participating and for the questions. We will be back. We are doing these sometimes twice a week, but you can find out a bit more on our website, density.io. Thank you again, and have an excellent week. Thank you, Nida.
Thanks for having me, Andrew. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. Bye.